Call. Two men. One named Rich. That's me.
This is Jermaine. Just got off the toilet.
He's a foul man. This is the X's and O's of life.
Huh?
I don't know what to say.
Gets me every time, man. Gets me every time. So this is a special recording, I guess. We're not recording on Sunday. This guy obviously isn't Jermaine. He might be. I don't know. He may have grew hair. I don't know. But as you can see, the name of the episode, The Prince is Back. So, Sir Prince of Fresh Air, go ahead and do your introduction.
Well,
okay,
I got to do it my way. This what we doing? Huh? This what we giving the people?
I'm big time. I'm big time.
Yeah, well,
right,
can't big time. Can't
Oof.
big time. But anyway, I'll do it my way. Welcome to the most overrated, underappreciated, most viewed, underviewed episode of all time. Welcome to the X's and O's of life. I am the Prince of Fresh Air, the most charismatic man, and I just did a better intro than the host. So I need my $5,000, Rich.
So I will tell you that is not a flex. That's like saying you're like the thinnest kid in fat camp. So
what's wrong with that?
Right. I'm just saying. So, sincerely though, thank you for filling in. Needed a co-host. I wanted to get kind of back on a good schedule. So appreciate you coming in kind of sort of short notice. So we do, I guess you wouldn't really know yet. We did do an episode, last Wednesday?
I think for mine?
Yeah.
I think it was last Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay. Super, super good conversation. I'm not trying to blow smoke or anything, but once he gets it out, I'm gonna promote the hell out of it because it was real good. I was real proud of it. So
yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it here. In the same format as always, everyone knows that. So I was kind of struggling with some topics because I'm a little out of the loop on how we usually do things on this side of it. So kind of had to do some pivoting. So you brought to the table a few interesting little things that we could go over. So what did you bring to the table? And let's go.
Yeah, let me say this. I think we live in a society where everything goes viral. A lot of things get attention, but we don't talk about the important things. So one of the biggest things I like to address, especially as a content creator, an actor who spends a lot of time on social media, I think social media, as much as I love it, I think it has pros and cons to it. And I think that is a good conversation to have, especially now with AI. People being able to monetize on every platform now. I think we need to talk about how social media, whether good and bad, is impacting our society and what the future is, because social media is here. It's like me and cheesecake is always going to be present. So where do we go from here? How can we balance and use social media in a more productive manner is what I would say.
You're better off trying to get peace in the Middle East. It just isn't going to happen, man. Social media has become a cancer. And it's a shame because when it first came out, it was supposed to be, kind of a platform where you could interact with your friends digitally and share photos and it's before cell phones were super big. Now it's who can yell the loudest digitally. it's a way to kind of spew hateful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There are small pockets of people that use it for good. They use it for fun, use it for what it's supposed to be. But like the ratio is, it really feels like trolly, disingenuous, mean-spirited people are like 10-1 to the good people. I don't think there's an actual way to change that, because I think it's more of a society problem than a social media problem. You allow people free speech, which, I'm not saying take away free speech, but you allow people free speech and anonymity. You're gonna look, we don't really do politics stuff on here, but you do that and you basically have a Trump situation. Oh, where'd he go? Uh-oh. Lost our guy. He'll come back. But there he is. He's back.
Yeah, sorry, TMZ called.
See?
They were trying to. They almost found me, so I had to disconnect for a second.
Well, I said the bad word and he ran away, so I'm not saying that, whatever, but saying. But yeah, I mean, you give people free speech and anonymity, you have a Trump situation, and that's scary. And I don't know. What are your feelings on it here?
Well, with the free speech thing, let's say this. I feel like at the end of the day, it is free speech, right? And I think that social media, I feel like the pandemic has allowed people to feel comfortable to spew all types of nonsense on social media. So that's always going to happen, especially when you're talking about, people, under a certain. I would even throw people under the age of 35, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are trying to give views. For instance, like I've had you on my podcast when we were talking about sports, right? And it's gotten to the point now where people are engagement farming. So for people who don't know what that means, is people just trying to get clickbait and get as much attention as they can, so they can get the numbers up and get paid from X, formerly Twitter. And
so frustrating. Get off my feed, man. Get off my feed.
Are we good? Are we back?
Yeah, you froze up for a minute. You got that tin can internet.
Yeah, you know what it is? We was talking about this yesterday. It got super dark. Like, I couldn't even tell you how dark it got. Like, it's like pitch black. It's darker than me. Can you believe it?
I was going to say, don't make me do a black joke here. You can do it yourself.
Well, I'm half Cuban, so, nice try.
Really?
But anyway. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's fun.
Yeah, the hair, the tattoos, the good looks. I'm like Chris Hemsworth, if you wanted to be Chris Hemsworth, if you get my drift.
No, went way over.
No, me neither. Dude. Me neither. Yeah.
Cool.
That
fell flat. Oof.
Well, not every joke is gonna land.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you know what it is? I think the pandemic has sped up social media. I think if we didn't have the pandemic, we might see a shift. But just to go back just a little bit when I was talking about engagement farm, I think so. You know why? Yeah. It's because for 2.5 years, you had people who had nothing to do for the most part, sitting at home, didn't really meet anybody. Obviously people, met up with friends and stuff. But generally, most people just sat in the house all day, had nothing to do but go on social media. And people got comfortable with trolling people on the internet. So now it's just blended. I think it's progressed social media to a point now where we're very dependent on it. So now that people, like, for instance, this one guy on X, follow me Twitter, he got bullied off of there because he was engaging farming hard. He would call, UFC fighters homos. He would call them fruitcakes. He would make jokes about, people who suffered, tragedies, like Francis Ngannou. I'm sure you heard the name, but he lost his son, and he made a post comparing him and another retired UFC fighter who lost a son. It was like, this is what happens when you suck. So, it's allowed people to troll because they see that negativity sells on the internet, right? we don't let's if we're gonna keep it real, right? Do we really, for a lot of people, do they repost the people in church, who's praying God? This is a certain group of people who do that. But most of
Right.
the stuff that gets attention on social media is the negativity stuff. People
Right.
calling out fighters, people, trolling successful people. And I think that we have monetized negativity. And that's just one aspect. Honestly, that's the aspect mostly for like X. But I think a whole with social media, I think the biggest problem is people forget that it's not reality. I think a lot of people see, you know, other people going on vacations, taking lavish trips, and why can I do that? Or why is my boyfriend or girlfriend not helping me to get that? And I think we have conditioned ourselves to compare each other. And I think that is the biggest problem because now you have a bunch of 17, 18, even 40-year-old people on Instagram and TikTok seeing other people's success and like, why am I not getting there? Why am I not like that? And so I need to elevate myself to get to that point, or I'm a loser. I'm a low life. So I think that's the biggest criticism. Do you agree with that or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a giant peep measuring contest. Like that's what it is. Like you see people that flaunt their stuff, and it's funny because they're like, "Why can't I have that?" Well, do you realize you're contributing to them having that because you're clicking their stuff and their whatever facade that they think that they're living. And it's such a small pocket of people. Like the normal 17, 18, 19-year-old person isn't able to do that. They lucked into it. They fell into it. And then they had something ridiculous happen that they have some insane following, and now they're paid to live like they earned it.
Right.
I hate to say it that way, but that's kind of what it feels like. Engagement farming is the absolute worst because, especially in the sports world, because you can say generally whatever you want to do and twist it and maneuver it whatever way you want to do it, and you can make it seem like some kind of breaking news, and you know who's not going to speak on it? The athlete, because they don't care. Eventually the truth comes out, but you have already gotten your clicks and your farming done, so no one's going to come after you for slander. It's an interesting place. It's not all bad though, right? You can make some good deep-seated relationships. You can interact with people that you never would be able to interact with. You get to just, I'm not saying you should get your news from Twitter, but you can definitely kind of be kept in the know. No, I mean, depending on what you follow and whatever, there are certain things and certain people you can follow that are like, oh, okay. Oh, like I have one on here. It's the Pittsburgh Scanner, right? It's a police scanner guy, and he always puts up what is going on, and some of it is serious, some of it is absolutely ridiculous. But I will tell you, when we lost our cat, I reached out to him, and I was like, "Hey, man, look, I know this isn't really your bag, but can you get this out to your people?" And within like 3-4 hours, there were like 16,000 views of people looking for the cat, and we found him. But it's one of those kind of niche things where you can use it to your advantage. But yeah, I believe that unfortunately the negative, just like how we are as people, we focus on the negatives. You don't run down the road saying your toaster works. If your toaster doesn't work though, you're like, I'm freaking out, something dumb like that. But we focus on the negatives. That gets more clicks. Look at the news, the evening news, rape, arson, fires, murders, whatever. That's what you hear for 28 out of the 30 minutes the news is on. And you don't want to hear it, but you watch it and you're interested. It's like a car crash. You don't want to see someone hurt, but you're definitely looking like, it's just what you do. But it's not going to get any better. Unfortunately, people are going to be more and more lax with their moral compass. And you can't really stop it. You can always create a burner account. Like that's the other part of it. Well, I got blocked. Well, let me create another burner. That got blocked, so on and so forth. So you can keep spewing whatever you want to spew without really any repercussions.
Right. Now, let me ask you, and this is one of the reasons why I don't pre-plan questions, because something always comes up. Now, I already, like I said, I text you a list of things, but I do want to ask you about this because this is a big talking point. So we're talking about children and social media. So, like, according to the New York Times, child influencers has made over $11 billion. Children's and teens has made $11 billion for social media platforms, right? And
Good God.
there was a couple on Dr. Phil. Don't ask why I watch. I don't really watch Dr. Phil, but I saw the segment. And this couple is known for making family content, so it involves a lot of underage, they're underage children and stuff like that. And they make money from TikTok and Instagram. They have a big, they amass a pretty big following. And one of the questions that they, people ask is, your children, like, because they do this full time, they don't have day jobs, they make content full time. And a lot of people are, asking this question. Okay, you could pay a car note off of this, off of these things. You could pay your mortgage, your rent. You could pay your household bills. What are the children getting for being involved in this type of content? Because whether you on TikTok is like the biggest one, but you also have Instagram, and you do see a lot of children going viral. And obviously, as we all know, if you're under the age of 13, you can't run your own page. So that's your parents. So someone made a good point, being an actor, right? We have child's, protection. So children, when they make money from acting, it goes to a separate account that the parents cannot touch. That's for the kids until they turn 18. So it's essentially their money is being protected. Whereas with social media, they're making all this money. The parents are making all this money. And what's going to the kids? Are the kids getting allowance? No. Is this money being saved for most of these children? No. And people are wanting to talk about children being exploited for the purpose of money and social media. How do you feel about that? Especially being a parent, how do you feel about, people who make content involving their children, but the children aren't getting paid for performing? Because essentially they're child performers, if you think about it.
So I would disagree that they're not getting paid, because think about the quality of life that they have. I don't follow that stuff, mostly because I just don't care. It doesn't appeal to anything about me. But from an outsider's point of view, thinking about it, I would venture to guess that their quality of life is probably better than what it would have been if they were working 9 to 5s. I don't have like the facts to back that up. I don't know. Are they being exploited? Like, what are they doing? Are they doing like jackass stuff? Or are they just kind of doing little silly dances and 15 seconds of whatever, and they have an editor put everything together? Like, is it really putting them out? No. But I don't know. Like, if these people were doing this and the parents are pocketing all the money and not doing anything, like not improving any quality of life things around the house or anything like that, then yeah, that's a problem. But you're not gonna do that. I hate to say this, but the selfish nature of people, you are going to improve your life, and by proxy, because they're kids, that's going to improve their life. So now, if you're doing it with like your 19-year-old, it's like that's just weird. That person should have their own kind of thing. But
Right.
I don't know. Like I don't feel like it's being. If the kids were doing like a 8-hour live stream 4 days a week, yeah, that's a problem. But if we're talking about mostly TikTok stuff, that's like little snack size stuff. So, hey, whatever. As long as they're being taken care of, I don't really see a problem.
That's a good point. But one of the things, like, because there's a lot of studies being done and they equate it to child performance in acting, where it's like, even if a child has a one-liner in a hit TV show, that child is going to be, I mean, granted, there's some perimeters that children have to, they have to abide by for underage children, but they're going to be on set for at least 8 to 10 hours just for that one line. And then when you think about social media, as someone who also edits, content for Instagram and stuff, it takes it takes a lot of not editing, but a lot of, choosing angles, refilming. This is not something you just do on one take and that's it. And I think for a lot of people, they look at it like, hey, a lot of these kids are being used on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and some of these channels are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, if not $10,000 a month. And so, a kid who's coming home from school and being forced and dragged into content for their parents to make for social media, that kid could be, doing an extracurricular activity. They could be doing their homework. They could just be doing something else. But their families are dragging them into this limelight of, hey, I need you to film this content. So a lot of people are like, okay, a lot of kids are being involved in this content. And we're not talking about just the run of the mill, the mom is shooting something, the kid says how I run. We're talking about the kids are the focal point of the content. The kids should be paid for their work. Why? Because if you make $10,000, just a figure, if you make $10,000 a month and your child is the star of the program, they deserve some money, because I do agree with you. I think as long as they're taken care of, that's fine. But it's also, they're the ones making that $10,000. Granted, you're probably editing and stuff like that, but the child is the main star. People are watching it for the child. And I think that they deserve that protection of, if you're getting paid for your services on these platforms, set aside a percentage for your child, because no child who, under the age of 18 should be making content and then their parents are making all this money. And then as soon as they turn 18, they got nothing. And this what happened with a lot of child stars in the 1990s, the 1980s, even the early 2000s. Kids were on these popular movies and TV shows. Macaulay Culkin is a prime example, making all this money being in these popular shows. And then the money's dried up before they even become a legal adult. So it's like, I think that's the biggest thing for me is like, when I see a lot of these kids on YouTube and all this stuff, and not every platform, not every channel is making that type of money, but the couple that was on Dr. Phil are, and I'm trying to figure out what are the kids getting, a toy? What are they getting for these services? And I think that's a big talking point.
I mean, if we're talking that level of money, I mean, I would venture to guess they have a very large house. They have everything that they want. Almost guaranteed to have a pool. Whatever animals. Like, I feel like they are, and maybe this is my optimistic idea, but I feel like the horror stories that you hear are very few and far between by comparison to like the reality of it. Because with how kids are now, where they got an itchy trigger finger for what I'll call, CPS. And that's almost like saying in an interrogation, I want a lawyer. Everything stops, everything halts. So I kind of feel that negates this kind of like work camp, possible idea. I think I don't hate the idea of having like their money in escrow. But how do you do that? Like how do you, because if you're below a certain age, you can't actually have it and it's on the parents' channel, then I mean, hey, you kind of are, you fell into like a little niche of content that you do that people are watching, which, not for nothing, it's pretty weird to watch like a kid on YouTube. I just put that out there. Anyway, like just like the idea of that is pretty strange, but it feels very, very gross. Maybe there should be something where it's like, okay, you can only be 13 and above. That's it. Then, they can have whatever kind of trust fund or whatever they can do. Like YouTube sends them a prepaid card or something, just something that I don't know. I don't know, but you can't really police a family that is essentially, at that point, they are the manager of their child in that universe. You can't really police them and tell them what to do, and if their underage child should be making a paycheck, because then there's all those child labor laws. Like it's a real thin line that you're kind of dancing around, and it's not really a clear cut. Every answer you have is going to have another question to it. So I would say cut off. If you're above 13, you can do it. Anything below that, you can't. I don't know if that's a parent's job, man, and they quit their job to do that. There's no way they're not providing for that family. There's no way. Like the kid's not in squalor, because the kid could just be like, "Yeah, dude, I'm not doing it. You have to do." No, I don't. CPS. You remove Chuckles. Like that's all that has to happen. And if anyone says kids don't know that, well, guess what? You can see anything you want to on YouTube. So I'm quite sure with their comments, with their hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, people will put the comments in there. CPS, like it's, I don't know. I get what you're saying, but
the reason why I mentioned it too was, there was this, in the early 2010s, when I was a teenager, my early teens, there was a kid on YouTube. I didn't watch him too often, but I knew he was. He had like 2-3 million subscribers on YouTube. He was making a killing, and years later, I'm talking about like during the pandemic. Everybody's in their 20s now, and he's talking about, because he did a video. I think he took a break after this. I think he stopped uploading for like a couple years, but he was talking about how like he was in financial strain because all the money he made when he was a teenager and a young kid, he didn't see a dollar of it. I mean, granted, yeah, his parents might have bought him stuff, but it wasn't anything sustainable for when he was 18.
There's no equity to it.
Right.
All just go away. Right.
And
okay.
You hear these stories all the time, and I know acting is different from social media, but a lot of people are just talking about this now because a child YouTube star should not be, who's making. I'm not counting nobody's bank accounts here, but if they're averaging 10 million views per video, we're talking a decent amount of money. So there's no reason why the kid should be, 18 years old and have no money in the bank. All the money
Right.
spent and gone. And I think that's the biggest thing is that people looking at like lately, I've been seeing a lot of family content, and the family content is mostly centered around the kids or the teenagers, which is fine. I have no problem with it. Some of the content is actually pretty funny, but when you take in count that how much again, I don't know how much they are getting paid because people need to realize a lot of people are on social media, but if you're constantly doing sponsored posts, or if you're YouTube, you have ad revenue and stuff like that, you're making some type of money. So I just think for me personally, a lot of kids do get exploited. Again, $11 billion in 2022. And that number is only going to increase the more as social media gets more popular, which I don't even know if it could at this point. But as more apps come along and ad incentives come along, a lot of kids are, being used to make content, and a lot of parents are using it to their advantage, but they don't see nothing wrong with it because they're sustaining a life that they probably wouldn't be able to do in a 9 to 5. Not many 9 to 5s are going to provide you $10,000 a month. Let's just be real. So, I think that's just my only thing. But just to segue from that, it's a good point, right? Now, as we talk about jobs and money and all that stuff, inflation is a big thing. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you last week when you was on my podcast, we were going to talk about it, but we switched directions. So let's just talk about it now. I shared this story once, but there was this guy on Instagram. He has a decent following. I think like 200,000, a little under 200,000, and he makes content sometimes involving his daughter. So he did a video of his daughter working at McDonald's. It was just a quick. He came in, said hello. They had a good banner. She was a cashier, so whatever. And people are making fun of his daughter. Oh, she working at McDonald's. That's not a real job. Why are you letting your daughter work at McDonald's? Go get a real job. And I left a comment. We shared a couple DMs, but essentially I want to talk to you about this because we do see a rise. We've talked about tipping culture, delivery drivers, fast food workers. A lot of people tend to look down on certain jobs. And as we move into a society now where a lot of people are trying to become their own business people, so they're working multiple jobs, they have side hustles. What do you think about fast food work? Because some people say minimum wage is for teenagers and for the people who lack an education. How do you feel about jobs in today's society?
Just like fast food jobs.
Yeah, fast food. Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, the quality of work matches the quality of service, right? Generally speaking, your order is usually, not usually, maybe like 60-40, it's messed up. And that can't always be a mechanical issue. It's usually an effort, a paying attention thing. This is kind of why they get paid what they get paid, because you're not doing strenuous, real kind of need to have a strong education type of job. Now, with that being said, this is why these jobs are pretty much meant for the teenagers that are working part-time, that are just trying to make a little bit of not beer money, but you know what I mean? Whatever. They're just making a little bit of, whatever, just to have whatever. If I go to a McDonald's drive-through and there's like a 27-year-old working the drive-through, I'm not going to sit here and judge. I'm not going to do that, but I'm also going to be like, oof. Like, this isn't meant for you. Like, this is not where you wanted to be. I think it's kind of hard not to say that you look down on those employees, because the young kids, you can't really do anything with that. don't be a dick. Like, they're kids. What they're doing, it's fine. I don't know. You're kind of getting paid for what you're actually putting out. I don't know. I know that's probably not a popular opinion, but if you were actually cooking the food and not just like letting the grill do what it has to do and pulling it from your grease-soaked little tray and putting it together based on directions that were given to you, then okay, we can talk about getting a more inflated rate of pay, but you're not cooking anything. Like, you're not, I don't
know. This is a subject for me. I want to say is personal, but
Okay.
I wanted to talk about it because I feel like as a society, we have, again, I think social media has played a part where people have seen, their favorite creators always going to Abu Dhabi, going to Costa Rica, Hawaii, and, going on these lavish trips and thinking, hey, I need to get to that type of status. For me personally, and again, being an actor, I've met a lot of actors who are struggling, to just trying to pay the bills until acting, makes them real money. And it's a saying, it's an old saying that goes with being an actor. You're gonna be busting tables. So most actors I know, or most people I know who are creatives, they tend to work in the food industry, whether it's McDonald's, a server job, bartender, but something along the lines of food service. And I get it. I used to look at people who were, over the age of 25 and think, why are you working at McDonald's? But at the end of the day, for me, I've learned to realize when I lived in LA, right? I worked at a gym part-time and I was overnight. So I should have, I was making, good hourly wage. But then I would meet people who's working at In-N-Out. For people who don't know In-N-Out, that's a big West Coast establishment. Making $19, $20 an hour, right? How many regular 9-to-5s that hourly are paying that type of money? Not many, unless you work in tech or finance. So for me, it was kind of one of those things where, people are just trying to make an honest living, especially now in this society, in New York especially. I know a lot of people who are struggling because it's not easy to just bounce from one job to another unless you're willing to take a pay decrease. So for me, I know one of my little brother's friends, he works at McDonald's and he gets paid more than some of the people who work at my part-time job now, who's been on a job for 20 years. Like, there's no reason someone at McDonald's should be making more than a health aid, but that's the issue.
Let me chime in here because my job, they are piss poor with their cost of living adjustments that they do every year. It is not good what they do. They really seemingly don't care. It's pretty trash, to be honest with you, because there was, if anything, they have taken money away as inflation has risen from other incentives and what have you. But yeah, it's that in its own right is a problem, because I remember when the pandemic hit, I drove by a Sonic and it was like starting at $18.25 an hour. I'm like, I mean, I make more than that, not obviously, but I make more than that. But I'm like, you should not be nearly as close as you are to what I make hourly to do what you do compared to what I do. And that is a very, very pretentious statement. I understand that. But I also understand the skill set differences between those jobs. So I think the problem is a lot of the jobs now they're getting away with people. They're getting away with the idea that you don't have to travel to work if you're working at home. You don't have to travel, so you're saving on commute. You're saving on time. There's other savings and what have you, but I think a lot of them are getting away with that, and you're just like, well, I'm able to work at home, so I'll just deal with it. Until people really get pissed off and they actually not uprise, like, fight the power and like that, but like they make a big issue. These companies are just going to kind of get away with it. I guess the question would be, do fast food workers deserve, because this is what you messaged me, full disclosure, do they deserve a living wage? Well, it depends what a living wage is. I personally think if you're working at McDonald's, you're working in that fast food thing, you should probably be with your parents, because you should be in that age bracket. Not every single person falls under that. I get that. But for the most part, when you go there, you see a bunch of young kids, and you may see, a few older folks, maybe a middle-aged, not middle-aged, but like high 20s, lower 30s person as a manager. Okay, that makes sense. But if you got gray hairs and you're running the drive-thru, dude, what are you doing? Like, what happened? I don't know.
I'll say this though about that.
I don't want to like crucify these kids, but I'm also like, yeah. God, sorry.
I would say that. I would say, I met a guy who he was older gentleman. This guy was, pushing 75, and I remember talking to him because he had a hard time walking, and he was doing, I think he was doing he was a utility worker, so he did like the real big pies, taking out the trash. This dude's pushing 75. We're not talking about a spring chicken here,
right?
And I asked him, I'm like, why are you still working? Like, I would be kicking back, enjoying. And I think the biggest problem for a lot of people is money. Inflation is crazy. A lot of people can't retire, and I think the only reason why I try not to, I try to encourage people not to talk down on other people's jobs is because I've learned this. We're always one choice away from being on the street. Right. And we have, especially like where I grew up, a lot of people has glamorized the gangster lifestyle, the criminal lifestyle, selling drugs, which is very lucrative, but also comes with a lengthy prison sentence if you get caught. So I think for a lot of people, for a lot of older people, they do it because it might be a little more easier on their body.
I get that part.
But I also say too, whether you work at McDonald's, Walmart, whatever the case may be, a job is a job. At the end of the day, for me, I don't judge because not everybody is going to be able to work in finance. Because if that was the case, then nobody would be in finance. If everybody was wanting to be in business, then what is the importance of a master's degree? So I think that every job plays in a big important part. And some people say, oh, well, fast food workers don't deserve to get paid more. Okay. So when you want your Big Mac, don't complain when you get a sloppy sandwich. Oh no, you get paid to make the sandwich. You can't have it both ways. You can't say you got to do a good job because you get paid, but you don't deserve to get paid. So because I look at it like this. But I'll say just real quick, I'll say this. Yeah. I think people need to realize just because, like, I've worked in the fast food industry before.
Yeah.
And it's not easy work. People think it's easy. It's not easy. A lot of times you got to work through your 30-minute break.
Right. It's fast paced. Absolutely.
It's fast paced. And a lot of people don't realize it. Some jobs are easier than others, but it's generally a lot of work. And I feel like just because you feel like you wouldn't do that ever in your life, you would much rather sell drugs and work at McDonald's. Because I've heard this statement before. I'm like, it's a job. And to be fair, some McDonald's workers make more money than you do. So, like I said, I know people who's been on a job 20 plus years, and McDonald's workers make more money than them. Why? It's because nobody wants to do those jobs. So what happens? All right, for instance, there's a truck driver shortage. So if you want to be a truck driver nowadays, right now, you're going to make a lot more money than a lot of people who work for the government does because nobody
Right.
wants to do those jobs. So I think that's one of the biggest issues is people are, oh, I want to work at McDonald's. Okay, you don't have to, but some McDonald's employees make more money than you do. And, I think that's the biggest thing.
No, that's definitely an interesting other side of the coin. Yeah, I mean it I think it's easy to forget. That's why weird segue, but I always think it's funny whenever you hear, like, for not being political, I'm like pretty political today, but whatever. You hear like the right, they're always like, oh, these damn Mexicans are taking my jobs and yada yada yada. So I have two stories. One, we had a plumber come in and do some stuff at the house, whatever, that's fine, great, wonderful. At the same time, 2 houses down, this house that's an absolute just garbage heap, they're redoing it. And it has been 84 and 85 those 2 days. Okay. These group of like 5 or 6 Mexican fellas on a roof from about 7 a.m. to about 6:30 to 7 p.m. working their ass off. Like they went on that roof looking like me, they came off looking like you. All right. So yeah. So it is not pleasant.
No.
But you know who doesn't do that? White America. You know who doesn't do that? Black America. You know who doesn't do that? Asian America. They get paid, and here's the shitty thing of it, they get paid nothing to do that. Like, they don't get paid real well. But those are the jobs that people don't want to do, that you just, expect to happen. You're like, yeah, there's no one, this is a nameless, faceless job. No one's really doing it. No, there's people doing it. Unfortunately, it ends up usually being of Spanish or Mexican descent. But one, I don't know if it's in their skill set or what have you, but they're the ones that do that job. You're right. You can't really complain about they shouldn't make the money when you're way above that work in your head. And you're like, well, no, they should just bring out what I tell them to bring out and get paid 12 cents. I'm kind of in the middle with it. You shouldn't be close to what I'm making, but you should also be able to, take care of yourself. I saw a lot of things on Twitter about people in a big uproar. Like, it's a common thing I'm seeing now. Should people in McDonald's, should they be able to afford a living wage and their rent? I'm like, what kind of Nazi Germany are we living in? Like, why are you gonna like crucify these people and ask that question like they're lower than you? They shouldn't deserve a living wage. Like, no, I'm not saying that. Minimum wage is garbage. Like,
yeah,
I think currently it's like $7 over here. I'm like, dude, what are you
gonna? Oof, that's horrible. Oof.
Like, what are you supposed to do with that?
That's
now,
brutal.
mind you, I make 20. I think it's 26 an hour now. I don't know. It's something like that. So, like, to give you a general kind of range there, like, I'm making what, about 4 times more than minimum wage. And I'm still like, dude, where's my money? What is that person doing? They're not working 40 hours a week. And here's the other scheme. And a lot of people don't realize this. It's garbage. You have Aldi's out your way?
I think we have one on Long Island.
Okay. So they used to pay crazy big. Like, when
I heard.
But here's what they do. They're like, we're going to pay you 22, 23 an hour, but you work like 18 hours a week. And it's like, unfortunately, I think they play, and this sounds really bad because I'm really like, for not like talking down to these people, I'm really kind of like laying into them. They prey on the uneducated and the, not keeping up with the Joneses and the the smart category people, because they expect them to see, oh, it's 23 an hour. This is great. This is great. This is awesome. I'm doing so good. But if you're only working half of a 40-hour week, that 22 becomes $11 an hour, basically, for a 40-hour week. Like that's what you're bringing home. So they expect people to not catch on to that.
Right.
And that's, so
That's smart.
Yeah, it is. And it's a really dirty business tactic, but it works because people see that inflated amount of money and they're like, oh yeah, this is great. It's fine. I only have to work two and a half days a week. Okay. It's like you're making $11 an hour, man. Like that equates to here. Let's see what that actually ends up being. I'm curious here. What do you think it's going to be after tax?
After tax? You said 22, 18? $22 an hour, 18 hours?
Yeah, I'm going to say just break it down into 11 for 40.
11 for 40. After tax, at least in New York, that's about probably $330-ish.
Okay.
This is New York, because New York is brutal with their
Well, pre-tax it's $440. Okay. So generally tax is about 22%. So we're going to times that by 22. So you're bringing home about, let's just call it to round it, about $340 after tax a week.
I called it. I called it.
Yeah, you killed it. Good job. But yeah, that ends up being what? About $13.50 a month. What are you doing with that? What are you doing with that? Tell me, please. I'll wait. You know what I mean?
I mean,
like
depending on your living situation, if you're only paying under $500 a month in rent, then that might be,
Yeah,
but
we pay $11.50 or no, I think it's like actually 12. You pay 12. So that would be the rent. Then you have 160 left. So you don't have electricity, you don't have gas, you don't have water, you don't have sewer. You definitely don't have a car. Hopefully you live in walking distance. You can afford, I don't know. You have 160 left, so you have to deviate some of that for food. Good luck there. You have to pay the $25 cover charge just to walk into a grocery store now. So yeah, like it's a problem, but that's also kind of where this other stuff comes into play, where generally speaking, if you're working those types of jobs, already excluded because they are really, dirty on how they do business. But, those other jobs, you're kind of supposed to be working from mom and dad's house. Like it's not meant to be, I'm on my own paying rent with this. It's not rent paying money.
I agree, but I will say this. When we look at life, like for instance, LA, the minimum wage for fast food workers, I think just went up to $18 an hour, right? Delivery drivers, the if you order Postmates or Uber Eats in New York, they just went up. I think it's like $25, $26 an hour, and people are outraged by it. They say, "Oh, they shouldn't get paid this much. I should get paid more than me." And I say this to you, okay. You feel that way. What happens when you go to McDonald's and there's no worker? What are you going to do for food? What happens when you go to the grocery store? Nothing is organized. Nothing is put away. All the fresh stuff is in the back, is disorganized. What are you going to do then, right? What are you going to do when you go to the gas station and the pump is out of service and the gas attendant is not there? What are you going to do? I think people have forgotten during the pandemic, the same people we criticize are the same people we relied on. I don't care how much money you make. We all go to McDonald's, especially if you're, middle to low income. We all go to McDonald's. We all go to Domino's. We all go to Papa John's. We all go to these places at some point within a month. Right. And I granted, I'm not saying they should get paid just as much as doctors, But what I'm saying is, if we didn't have these workers in place, what would you do now? Because when you're too lazy to get up off your butt and go to the store, for that food you just placed through Uber Eats, what are you going to do then? Are you going to get up and take the train or drive and get your food? I don't really want to. That's why I ordered it. Okay, well, the driver should get paid, especially when they have to operate, at least when you live on the East Coast, all 4 seasons. When it's snowing outside. Do you want the driver to still deliver your food on time? Absolutely. Right. So they should get paid for that. And this is a debate I have with people, because not only have I worked in it, but I never forgot what it was like to work in those situations.
I mean, I worked there when I was 18. Absolutely.
I mean, even in my early 20s, I was working at like Dave's Hot Chicken in North Hollywood, and I got to meet a lot of celebrities and stuff doing that. And was it the most glamorous job? No, but it paid my bills. It got me my headshots that I needed. It helped me get the materials I needed for my career. And I just look at it like, granted, I have a bigger purpose in life, so it's not the end all be all for me. But again, we could all lose our job tomorrow, right? If you don't have $15,000 saved, which most people don't, if you lose your job, how are you going to pay your bills? You're going to have to get that job at McDonald's at some point, unless you can bounce back really quick. And in this economy, jobs are short. A lot of people are not leaving jobs quickly enough because there's no job security unless you move out of state somewhere else, and then you have to take a pay cut. So I think, just for me, I just get passionate about it just because I know what it felt like for people to look down on me when I was working at those places. And I'm like, you could search my name on Google. At least in my opinion, this is how I thought. I have a purpose. I'm doing stuff that people are watching.
Right.
I just may not have the money to do that full time yet, but I'm getting there. And I just remember just that feeling of when I lived in LA, when I was at that job, just like people, I always just felt lesser than of a person. And I think that's a big disservice, because at the end of the day, if you're doing an honest day's work, I don't care if you're fast food, doctor, whatever, you deserve to get recognition, because there's people out here who hasn't worked a day in their life. They get government assistance. Those are the people you should be mad about, not the people who are making an honest day of work. That's
I think the biggest problem, and I think this would fix it. And obviously, there's a lot more than just like, oh, well, just do this, then it'll make everything better. If the whole economy was readjusted, and not to necessarily just appease the holier than thou, ideology that people have, but to adjust for actual cost of living. I think people just need to make more money.
I agree.
It's super simple, because if you have those people, look, like I said, 26 an hour here, right? And I think they're talking about raising it to like 15 or 16 for fast food workers. So not that I need to have this distance between us, because it sounds that way, but I guess in my head, I look at what you're doing, what you're getting paid. You're getting a double pay bump, basically, to kind of coincide with the cost of living. I've been doing my thing for 7 years. It's a skilled position. I shouldn't, like, the gap shouldn't close, and the gap on that shouldn't close without both parties moving. You know what I mean? And I feel I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, that's what gets them fired up. They're like, no, I'm not. They work there. They do what they got to do. Yada, yada, yada. They shouldn't get paid that. And it's because you look at your amount of money. You're like, well, wait, why is this close now? Because it shouldn't be close. Like, I think in the grand scheme, like, I think everyone here can agree to, if you are in the tech support field, if you're in a skilled position, whatever, you shouldn't be that close to someone that is, to say this, you're not even flipping burgers. You're putting it on the grill and having that little mechanism crunch them. Like, I don't know.
I definitely get what you mean. I think there's a big problem with the pay structure just in general. Like I said, it's sad that, like I said, I remember when I lived in LA during the pandemic, I would go to Burger King and there was a lady there. She was a cashier. Very nice lady. I think she was about late 30s, early 40s. And, we was talking one day as I was waiting, and she was telling me how she wasn't, because I'd never seen her before. She had a successful career in real estate, and then life happened. And now, you got to get a job. And that's why I said, like, people need to understand, like, and I actually want to, we won't make this too long, but this actually goes to another thing I want to address about this. I think it's the convenience of it, right? The delivery driver, you might not see him as the same as, your position or a lawyer, but who's going to get that food for you when you don't want to get it? They need to get paid,
They should be paid
mileage.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And for the longest time, a lot of these drivers, and that's another thing too. We're talking about jobs that used to rely on tips too. A lot of people ain't tipping like that. So the same people who say, oh, they shouldn't get paid. Okay, how much do you tip your delivery driver when he comes to deliver your food that you just spent $60 on? I didn't give him one. Okay, well, how's he going to pay his bill? So I think for me, it's like empathy. It's like, one of the subjects we was going to talk about was like trauma and mental health and stuff. I think that goes back into the fact that unless you're Bill Gates or multimillionaire and you have enough money in the bank to cover your bills for a year, the average American, I remember I heard a study, I think it was a CBNC. The average person don't even have $1,000 in a bank account for an emergency expense. So even if you do make great money, if you have a high rent payment, if you have car payments, if you lose your job tomorrow, most people don't have enough money to last them a month, not even two. So again, I think it's the supply and demand. Okay, you might not feel McDonald's workers should get paid enough to make a living or at least make rent, but
no, not you. No. I'm saying you're right the first time. There's unfortunately the people on Twitter are absolutely in that camp of your Freudian slip there. They're like, no, they don't deserve to make living. They don't deserve to be. They're basically, yeah, you were below me. You don't deserve to live. Make my food, bitch. It's like, wow, okay.
And people have that attitude, and it's horrible. And I'm like, and it's funny because a lot of people do that, don't have a job, or they might have a job that isn't fast food, but the fast food worker makes more than you. So how can you look down on a person who makes more money than you anyway? So for me, it's like, I remember I heard this story before. When we was kids, right? We was always told, don't be like the high school janitor. Don't be like the janitor, be the teacher. But then you learn the janitor makes more than the teacher. So it's like, at the end of the day, whatever you got to do to pay your bills.
Janitor's working all year round. Teacher's working 7 months a year?
Exactly. So, and this leads me to another question too. And this AI is on the rise. And I think one of the problems we're going to run into with jobs, which is why I was talking about fast food work, a lot of jobs are drying up because a lot of companies, even in the entertainment industry, we're seeing it. That's why right now, a lot of, I know people who's been on hit TV shows. They're working like this one guy. I know I've worked with him before. I had him on a podcast. He was on Power Book. It got so bad he had to get a day job because the money just isn't coming in as much. So a lot of industries are seeing AI being implemented, and now with AI, especially I would say in the next 5 years when it's more perfected, you're going to see a lot of the tech jobs. You're going to see a lot of the jobs that computers can replace come in. So either they keep you and you take a huge pay cut, or you're fired. So I think that a lot of people are starting to see that AI is a great thing, but it's also a bad thing. How do you feel about AI and the future of the workforce? Because just a little quick thing. I don't know if you ever seen this, but I saw a TikTok where there's a couple restaurants that does this.
Is it a Wendy's? It's underground, and it's like the little travel and when you go to the bank, they have that little tube that sucks up that your check or whatever.
I've heard of that. It wasn't that one. It was
okay.
was
That
it
ass
was a
was all excited. I'm like, ooh.
yeah, it was a McDonald's that's fully run. I think there's one human being there, and I think it's just the manager, but everything is run by machine. You have a little robot that gives you the
What's he
food.
managing?
That's the future, right? So
Hey,
how do you feel
Robot
about the rise?
201, go on break. Okay, boss. Like,
But how do you feel about AI? Because I feel like once we get to
well,
that point, you know, a
you
lot of
made
people
the
gonna be
point.
losing work.
You made the point. I mean, what I do for work is in the tech field, so there you go. Yeah, so it depends what you're doing. It depends what you're doing. It really does, because there is a lot to be said about the personal interaction and the idiosyncrasies that people bring to the table and problem solving skills and things like that. It is cheaper and more efficient to blanket things, and I'm absolutely coming from a tech field standpoint. I very because we already use it. We use it. We use it for our routing system. We use it to handle a lot of really mundane issues that don't necessarily need to go to an actual person. But
Right.
here's the problem. With the automated system that we use, it is not meant to pick up on your life story. It does not care. It's meant to pick up on certain little pinpointed words, and then it will basically send you in a circle. And it is there to almost piss you off to the point where you don't want to talk to anybody until you get to talk to somebody, and then you spend the next 10 minutes complaining that you couldn't talk to somebody, which is ironic because you just burnt 10 more minutes of your time. But I digress. So, certain aspects, it's great. I think some places lean in too hard. I feel like the best way to go about it is to have a hybrid system.
I agree.
You can't just go balls to the wall. I get it. It is a beautiful, crazy thing. Anyone that's been, watching the channel over the last few days, you've seen, I've been bumping out reels like, crazy, right? Because I've been utilizing, some AI stuff to get some content out, yada yada yada. Makes my life considerably easier. I got a 40 hour a week job. The wife has a 40-hour a week job. We got 2 kids. We got 5 cats and a dog. We got shit to do. You think I got
Right.
time to sit around and break all that? No, man, I don't. I mean, I could find time, but I'm not doing that. But it is a beautiful, just like with anything, man, moderation is everything. You love cheesecake. If your fat ass ate cheesecake every day, you would not have them giant traps you got. You know what I mean?
I'll die happy man. No.
Yeah, I know you would. I feel you. But cheesecake is good in increments. I always have a joke. You're kind of a football guy, right?
Nah, more MMA.
No? Okay. Well,
Nice
let's
try,
put it
though.
this way. No, it's fine. I can definitely make my analogy work. So insert your favorite fighter right here. And let's say the MMA game was a little different. You didn't need all that time to recover. If you saw this guy fight every week, you would get real bored of it. Okay. So moderation is key. I make the joke all the time of there's certain quarterbacks and certain players and certain, whatevers that are kind of like the ham salad of sports. Ham salad is great in small increments. But if you eat that every day, you're like, yo, this is gross. I don't want this anymore. So you kind of treat some of these things as okay, ease into it, man. You don't just you don't marry a blind date,
Right.
you don't have to have it that way. And it sucks because those jobs are going to go away. I'm not going to have a job. Dude, I'm going to lose my job. I guarantee it. With outsourcing and AI, dude, that's why I got a plan, man. That's if you think that these places that you're calling into for help, for tech support stuff, you think it's bad now, where half the time you go overseas and you hear the accent and you can't do it? Man, just wait till the robots get in there, fully get in there.
Yeah.
Hey. So
man,
it's good, but it's bad, just like with everything.
I think that a lot of companies are going to utilize it as much as they can because it's cheaper. You don't have to worry about people calling out. You don't have to worry about people having to miss work for that.
Damn,
you know what I'm saying?
I didn't even think of that.
And but that's the thing, though. That's the sad part, is that people are going to utilize human nature as a weapon. You know, if you have children, you're going to call out at some point. As a human, you're going to call out at some point. We all need a vacation. We all need a break. We all get sick. And the fact that we're going to
great example. Did they out your way? Did they not have some schools open the last few days?
I think a couple schools. I think there was a tech shortage or something, whatever.
Oh, well, because it was warm. It was warm out here, and they didn't have. It was like 84, 85, like I said, and a lot of these schools don't have AC, so they were doing remote learning. But I mean, it just goes to your point where you can't. You weren't sick. The kid wasn't sick. Nothing happened. Your car didn't break down. They literally couldn't go to school because it was too hot, so you couldn't work then. But yeah, that's a great like you can't expect that. But yeah, that's so dirty. Wow, that's dirty.
When you think about one of the things I love to do, I'm a weird person like this. I will think about the smallest things once in a while, right?
Yeah.
When you think about our society nowadays, when you walk down the street, I mean, where you live, I'm sure there's more people driving, but in New York, when you walk down the street, you see more people on their phone looking down than people looking around, right? When you think about the teaching aspect, how many teachers are relying on technology to teach kids now? You know, when you can't go to school, just go on Zoom, we'll teach you through there. Or, you know, do your assignment. You need to use your laptop. How many college students are using Chat GPA, which is a funny story in itself, but how many people are using Chat GPA to write articles, to write essays, to write whatever? How many?
Dude, my wife uses that for work.
That's what I'm saying. And like a funny story. So the media magazine, I was talking to one of the editors, and she was telling me how there's people, even people who are well known, are using Chat GPA to write out biographies and whatever the case may be. So we're getting to the point now where our society, we're embracing it. Like, I just got an update on my phone recently. The features that I can do on this phone, it's like I don't need a video editor anymore. So that's a job going right there. I mean, unless you need a very intricate, detailed type of project, you can do a lot of the basic stuff right on the phone now. So I think, like you said, tech support, unfortunately, is going to go away. Why? Because people want to be like, we don't need to pay you $40,000 a year when we can have this robot just implement the prompts in there, and then, you know, we'll keep, instead of having 5, you know, live support technicians on, we only need 2. So, you know, Rich, best of luck on your future endeavors. And it's going to get to that point, unfortunately, and it's sad because people don't see it now, but we are actually seeing it. Like, I don't know if you saw this video, but there was a video of a robot delivering food to, I guess someone ordered food, and they had a whole robot rolling around to the address. So we're going to see that, you know, Tesla with this.
I would rob that robot line. I'm just saying.
Truck driver. Look at truck drivers. You may not even need truck drivers eventually. Why? Look at a lot of these self-driving cars. You literally just need you might get to the point where you could actually fall asleep the whole time and the car just drive itself. At some point it'll get there, not right now. But I watch videos of like Tesla drivers, you know, they put it on self-driving mode and they don't lift a finger. I think maybe once in like 45 minutes they'll have to correct. But they'll just let the thing do itself. Like, I think we are embracing it to the point where we don't realize it, but it's happening. And a lot of people are going to lose jobs. The entertainment world, see, the reason why it's a big thing for me is because it's happening right now in the entertainment world, where a lot of people are getting hours cut. A lot of people getting fired. I know Google just had a massive layoff. A lot of productions are cutting costs. A lot of the people behind the scenes are getting fired. So it's sad, man. And I think people won't start caring until it finally impacts them.
Yeah, bro, that's exactly it'll never happen to me until it happens to you, and it's like, oh man, now I gotta go be a stripper. Like,
Hey, I'll work at McDonald's. But it's sad because I think when you're over 70, it is what it is. You're retired most of the time. You're retired. Right. You did your job. We got, a couple more decades to go. You know what I'm saying? We can't retire anytime soon unless you hit the lottery and whatever. So we're going to feel it. And for me, I don't want to be in my 40s and 50s, having to run from part-time job to part-time job because the degree I got is useless. That's another thing. When AI fully is integrated, getting a master's degree for certain jobs won't mean nothing because your position won't be as widely available. So it's an interesting concept, but it's surprisingly, it's not a conversation that's being taught a lot. Like, we're seeing this happen in real time, but we're so distracted
because you don't want to hear it. That's why you don't want to talk about it. Because if you talk about it, you put it into the ether, then you're out of a job. I get it.
I'm not wishing you out of a job at all. But it's
no. What I'm saying is, like, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to think about it because it's like it's kind of like that unconscious thing that is coming on the horizon. But it's like, if we don't talk about it, maybe it'll slow it down. Or you could just be super naive, or just that person that is just like, well, no, it would never come from my job because I'm special. I'm skilled.
Right.
You're not as skilled as a computer, dude. As much as you think you are, and as good as you think you are, and all the things you bring to the table, it doesn't matter.
Right. And like you said, when a robot, it doesn't have feelings. When you think about most people who speak to tech support, I'm not calling you out, but just in general, when people talk to say, "Oh, this person is taking forever," they're bashed, or they didn't resolve the issue. People are gonna be like, "Oh, okay, let me talk to this machine. It'll get the job done immediately. I'm gonna spend my hours waiting to connect to a live person. It just get me in and out. I don't gotta wait 3-4 hours." So I think again, I think for me, like my manager, we had like a whole company meeting last week, and we talked about it. Productions, a lot of TV and movie productions aren't going at the rate that they used to because people are cutting costs, people getting fired, a lot of layoffs, and people are trying to find ways to, there's a thing going on too where they're trying to have a lot of companies are trying to buy the digital likeness of celebrities. So think about it in this way, right? Let's say you're not acting, but I'll use the example. Let's say you're going to an audition for State Farm, right? State Farm commercial, right? Now, they want Will Smith. So Will Smith is not going to take the job because they're not going to pay him nearly as much as, his fee demands.
And I can smack people too, so it works out.
But that's fit, but what if this company, instead of getting you, they don't need to fly out Will Smith and pay for his hotel? Hey, Will, let's just use your voice and your likeness for this, and we'll cut you a check that it might be more than the fee they pay you, but it's Will Smith. All right, fine. I'll sit at home and I'll get paid however much money you're about to send me. I don't got to do nothing. All right, perfect. It's going to get to that point.
It's residual income. It's residual income based on your reputation.
Exactly.
It's like you're literally acting. It's kind of like you finally made it in the pyramid scheme game. You're actually finally getting paid for the people above you. That's just trickling down. But it's a great point. That is a great point because you then don't have to fly out. You don't have to spend your time because these people are egocentric. So yeah.
I mean, if you look at it this way too, if you ever watch like some of these Asian action stars, Sylvester Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, the CGI is so amazing nowadays. They can. I don't know if you ever seen the Old Spice commercial that has Dolph Lundgren in it, but
Yeah.
it's like the younger version of him.
Yeah.
It looks so accurate. You could hire a 70. I think he's in the 70s. You could hire this guy who has a name, a reputation in this industry, who can't do what they want him to do physically anymore, but his likeness is what makes it important. So you can pay him. He may not get the same fee he would if he flew in, but he's getting to stay on the couch. He's getting paid for that. He's getting residual money. It's a win-win. And I think that's the biggest downside is the fact that, yeah, from a business standpoint, yeah, it's nice to get a famous name without having to shell out the real big bucks for them so you can make money. But at the same time, the people who deserve the opportunity who haven't been seen yet are not getting the opportunity because people are trying to save money. So it's I think we're a society that is based upon profit. And until we move away from that profit mentality, which will never happen because we are just profit driven.
Right. You have to be.
Well, I would say like there's certain countries where, you know, I'm not going to make this a real super long thing, but there's certain countries that have, you know, you work 8 to 12, you close down for lunch, and then you work from 1 to 3, you go home, you call it. There's no calling me after work, none of that.
Right. It's called Europe, and they know how to do things right.
I agree. I agree. Like the fact that we have 5-day work weeks is a whole nother thing. I feel like we're probably starting to experiment. I know some company, I think the MTA for New York, they're starting to implement the 4-day week schedule. I think that's another thing that needs to be addressed too. Like the fact that you work 10 hours every day, 5 days a week, you get 2 days off. And usually the second day, Sunday, is usually the day that you got to spend, you know, cleaning the house or whatever the case may be. And then you don't even get enough time because you got to get up for work early on Monday. So it's, I don't know, man. I'm worried about our future because I wonder how our social security is going to look like, pensions going to look like, jobs is going to look like, just society. Like we're already stuck like this. So, but I will say though, for as big of a hypocrite as I am looking forward to seeing what technology looks like 30 years from now.
It's the car crash, dude. It is the car crash. You're interested. You're afraid to see what you're about to see, but you're also like, I want to see a body part. Like it is what it is. Like I feel like that's the normal. That's in my head. That's how normal people should look at it. You know, be concerned about what's coming down the pipe, but be excited about it too. Just be aware, though, like there are potential consequences with what's coming down because more tech means less need for you, probably.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Remember that movie I, Robot with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Terminator, Judgment Day with Arnold. Those movies we used to watch them and think, absolutely not. Now Terminator is a little more, and I, Robot, they're a little more out of the way. But we're living in a society where it's really not that far off. We're really being controlled by all of this, you know?
Remember when people were freaking out about people getting cloned?
Yeah.
Like, that's nothing now. Now it's like, you're going to start looking around like, okay, who's real and who is a digital representation? I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's a crazy thing. But I am curious, like, just when I talk to like the older generation, like the 70, 80, 90-year-olds, their technology is severely outdated to us. But we're going to get to the point where this cell phone, as powerful as it is going to look like when we look at the big dial clocks that they had. So it's interesting to be a human in today's society, but let's see what the future holds. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Well, look, we're about at $1.50. I think it's time to
wrap this shit up.
yeah, just and I'm not real good at that. That's why I got 2 kids. So
Your pull-out game is weak, essentially, is what you're saying. Got it.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what a rubber is. I don't even know. I think I have concrete tires. So listen, yeah. So everyone knows I'm gonna get this up. So it's live, so it's already gonna be popping on the socials there. That's not a problem. I'll be uploading the little reely things here later on today, so that'll pop up. Where can we check out Mr. Fresh Air?
Well, you can check me out multiple ways. You know, you can check me out on the street, at the Cheesecake Shop. No, I'm kidding. You can check me out though.
You may find him at the Cheesecake Shop.
Just might. But no, you can find me. Obviously, I have my Instagram. You can check that out. That's where I do a lot of my content creating. I love Instagram. The podcast, The Prince of Fresh Air, Rich is a unfortunate guest. He keeps coming on. I need to put an ad block on this guy to stop him from coming on. But you know, he's in the intro again. So you know, I want you to know that you're back in the intro. So
well, I'll be.
It's you know what? You know, it's all about the money, baby. You know, it's all about profit, like I was talking about. But no, you can, you know, Instagram, I have a lot of my stuff there. My website, the podcast, you can just Google it. But if not, you could go to my just type in The Prince of Fresh Air on Spotify, YouTube. Essentially, though, just go to Google and type it in. You'll find all the links there. And just connect. If you want to be a guest, I charge $10,000, you know, inflation. But you know what? It's the most charismatic experience. So, no, I'm just kidding. But feel free to send me a DM, send me a friend request. You know, text me your mom's address. No, I'm just kidding. But you know,
what do you got coming up? What do you got coming up? Like what projects?
Ooh, good question.
What are you looking for here?
So Medium, so I actually did. I think I told you about it already. I did a piece with them. I got another one coming out. It's mostly centered around the podcast. That'll be coming out in June. The film I shot 2 years ago is currently streaming right now in Spain because it's co-produced with Spain, but it should be coming to the United States relatively soon, God willing. So you know, look out for that. We're trying to get it on streaming, but we're gonna have a couple premieres in the city as well. And you know, I'm just auditioning, man. I don't talk about auditions so much anymore because now that it's dealing with NDAs and you know, people, it's a hush hush type of thing. But you know, we're working slowly and surely. You know, a lot of things are coming up, but just you know, keeping tight lips until the deal is signed. So you know,
well, that's exciting.
I tell you, I mean, I could talk about them freely, but at this point, you know, I'm blessed because you know, a year ago, 2 years from today back, I wasn't in a position I was to audition for a lot of these shows you might watch, and so it's cool to know that I'm in that conversation now. But
right,
they tell you to shut up if you talk about it, you post it. You know, they're gonna be on you. So,
universe, man, leave it be.
I'm humble. You know, I'm always trying to work. You know, it's acting is a journey and it's a lot of hard work. But you know what? The podcast is something for myself doing this. And I always enjoy it because you know, being a host, it's sometimes it's nice to not be in the driver's seat once in a while. So it was cool to do this. You know, I won my $5,000 though. Rich, don't forget that. I wanted to get paid. So
you're lucky I don't drag my nuts across your forehead. Just you'll get. I'll give you 500 pesos. How much is that?
And Diddy's money, $500,000.
Ooh. You better go ask him. Just you know, make sure you're sitting down.
On what?
Now whatever you choose to sit down on, sir. I mean, either way, it might be hard. All right, on that end.
Let's end it before we get a copyright strike or something.
All right. Hey, Percival, appreciate you, man. Thank you. Always free to be a guest here, but thank you for filling in. And just let me know whenever you get our episode up too, so I can let the folks know.
Yeah, I'm filling in a lot of things. But the episode should be out.
What's his name?
Well, it's a he, but he identifies as a she, so I don't know.
Oh, that's cute.
He said, "Come on, man, you're gonna get me canceled, man. You trying to get me in trouble."
Yeah. What I do? Give me your money.
You suck. But the episode should be coming out early
Not as much
June,
as you.
the first week of June. So,
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're gonna have that out. Yeah.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, thanks
Well,
again,
yeah,
brother.
let's get out.
Sincerely.
Absolutely. Let's get off before TMZ find my location again. So,
All right. Bye.